Welcome to the DNX Show. This is Wolfman Jack. I'm your host. Okay, welcome to the DNX Show. I was streaming that. My name's Todd Ryan. I'm one of your hosts. My co-host is Josh Reese, and we talk every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, about domain name investing, and today we're not going to let you down. First, I'm going to start by saying hello to my co-host. Hey, Josh, what's going on over in FLA?
Nothing much, man. All good. No complaints on my end. So good to be here with you today.
Yeah, we're going to have a fun show today. I was thinking, Josh, you and I are sour pusses, really. If you're friends with us, okay, things are good for you. But if you're not, we're like, no, we're not. I mean, I'd like to, if I didn't know you, Josh, we were both at a coffee shop, I could look over at you and I know, yeah, I'm not into this dump either, are you? Anyway, yeah, I mean, we both have attitudes. I think that's why it's nice to do a show with you. And, we just relate in that way. But okay, so there's a ton of things I wanted to talk about today, just domain stuff. If you go to dnxshow.com, you'll see some of the things on the outline. I mean, some of the topics I plan on touching on, but I did want to, I wrote some other notes down too. I saw that Rick bought intelligent glasses for 1,300, and I thought, geez, that seems pretty cheap for that type of, that word's been hot. But what do you think of that type of pickup, Josh? It's a product, I guess, but intelligent glasses for that amount, 1,300.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly broken the bank with that one, so it's not a terrible buy by any means. Um, yeah, we're not the type of name really that sells very well, despite the fact that it looks good and sounds good. The keywords are relevant, but we've talked about it before. Uh, the people spending money on domains is typically for a brand, and that one doesn't quite fit that category in my opinion. But uh, you know, 1,200, $1,300, it's not a lot of money, so you can't really go too wrong with that.
Yeah, everyone, thanks for joining us too. It is an open conversation. You can certainly come up here and talk about. We're going to be talking. I jump all over the place. It's all domain investing topics. Josh, the first thing I wanted to ask, I was just talking about it as we started the room, and that is, when you're a GoDaddy and you let a domain expire, if it gets a bid on it, they take it out of your account a bit sooner than if no one has interest in it. Do you know the time frames on that, or am I correct? They do remove it from your account sooner if someone's bid on it?
They might. That's not something I'm aware of, to be honest.
Yeah, because you don't let the name anything good drop. You know what's good and what's not. So have you been letting anything drop lately?
Yeah, I probably let. I mean, I let a few names drop every month. Just um, I could probably let more go. But when I have time to just kind of go through what I'm renewing that month, if I take a close look, I may say, I'm not feeling that name anymore and let it drop. Um, but for the most part, I don't plan on dropping anything.
Okay, I'm just looking at our outline to make sure how do I want to do this. Most importantly, my boy Max turned 7 today. Pretty important. I get him a pup cup from wherever the fuck people get pup cups. So just go somewhere and ask for one. I don't know. Put chicken into their ice cream. He doesn't give a shit. Um, yeah, so that's a big thing I got today. Have a lot of work to do. Um, yeah, there's a website. I saw Andrew Alleman doing some cleaning up some dirty laundry here. No, he posted that this person that's at Brandables, I guess that's their username here on whatever it's called, X, is oh yeah, so his name must be Cody. I'm looking at his profile right now at Brandables, but he has a website, Domain BFF, and Andrew Alleman said, "Hey, it's down, and I'm still getting charged." Do you know what this site was? What was Domain BFF? The site's down. Um, what? You familiar with that, Josh?
Yes, uh, I'm familiar with it, and I'm familiar with Cody. Um, he's quite active in the DNX Discord for a while. Um, but I don't know what happened to him. So, um, we have some interesting characters in this space uh, that sometimes go in and out of mental well-being. So hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, speaking of Darcy, if hey, was that the Cody that sold the weed names? There was like a Cody that was good with the cannabis names. I don't know. I just looking at this thing now, but great handle, I guess. Speaking of handles, I got so much shit to talk about today. Um, Broker Brook. I love that handle, but that's Broker Brook. Well, I know Summit was like, hey, how do I get to use one of these landing pages? It was a pretty cool landing page for, I guess it was for Subtle. I don't know which name it was for. I can't recall now because I go through so many. But down on my outline, this is really important. I had something. Yeah, I wanted to talk about brokers a little bit. And, but how do people submit a name to DNX brokerage if they want Brooke to put up one of those landing pages for them and work the name? What's a story on how do they submit? Just tell us.
Yeah, just go into your management dashboard, add all the domains that you have. Once you've added them, in order to there's an option to submit for to brokers. The two brokers on the platform right now are Media Options and Brook. You have to set your domains to have the DNX name servers before you submit. But once they have DNX name servers, you can submit them to either of those brokers, and if they accept them, it will automatically generate one of those landing pages. Obviously, you have to agree to the terms and everything, but yeah, simple as that, really.
Oh, I'd love to hear who Bruce is pissed off at now. Bruce is usually mad at a broker or two throughout the years. It's like each year it's a new one. Somebody doesn't call him back, he's fucking mad. Somebody fucking does something stupid, he gets real mad. Bruce, you know what I'm talking about too. But I know Brooke, I really like working with her. I haven't, I don't think submitted any names to her, but I just like Brooke. So, no, I know. Matter of fact, I wanted to ask personal stuff for about my own. Okay, so there's a name I'm following at Namecheap. It dropped. And I've been waiting and I couldn't even put in a drop order. It kept saying like I go to drop catch and it was telling me this name's not dropping. Finally, it's dropping. It's impending delete. Okay, it's over at Namecheap. So does Namecheap has its own auctions? I guess will it be auctioned at Namecheap until other people come up and talk with us and act like they know something? Fuck, you guys could help us out. I'm gonna keep asking Josh. So Josh, do you know about? Do
Mm.
you ever participate in Namecheap auctions? And if the name is at Namecheap and expires there, is it? I mean, only at Namecheap auction. If it doesn't, you know, I mean, if there's interest, because if it completely drops, then do all drop catch services have a chance at it? I know you may not know the answer. I'm asking so then somebody can come up and help us. But what do you know about Namecheap drops and auctions and stuff?
I mean, I know that they have a contract with the .ai, uh, with .ai, and in order to auction off um, expired inventory. I know that they also have a lot of their own expired inventory. Obviously, that's not a surprise given the fact that they're the second largest registrar on the planet. So yeah, I personally don't do an awful lot of bidding on any kind of platform. But if I am to bid, I normally go on Snap Names or occasionally expired auctions at GoDaddy. Very rarely on Namecheap. Um, the main reason to bid on Namecheap for the most part would be if you want to build a .ai portfolio, but it's not cheap to do so. So yeah, I typically avoid it. So I don't know an awful lot about the platform at this time, I would say.
Yeah, I wonder what that Richard's doing over there since he sold the thing and he still participates. I guess he still answers some questions on X, but yeah, I guess I'd be long gone if I was him. I would be like, yeah, that was fun knowing the domain space. Like you said, Josh, there's a lot of unusual characters here. I love it. The domain space. It is, weirdos. Smart guys, smart people too. A lot of smart people, and then there's that lot of combination of smart and weird, and then also a lot of top type A. What do they call them? Type A. I know I am. I'm like, anyway. I'm like anyway. I won't even say it. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my. When I was talking about those brokers, yeah. Um, well, let me get to that thing about, and then I'll get my questions about brokers. Like, what do I think a broker's job is, and what should it entail, and what do you think a broker's job actually is? And then, okay, but this reasonable number of days to complete a domain transaction once payment has been received. You brought up, Josh, that sometimes a payment's received, and then they can transfer the name, like 3 days to transfer the name, and then the other party can also add days onto it. But I guess the point was, what were you trying to get at there? Do you think just transactions, once they're agreed upon by both parties, that if there's not a strict rule on, people need to, I don't know, agree to it, or I don't know, complete the. What were you saying there? Just transactions can drag out too long and it doesn't make sense. Shouldn't be fixed.
Yeah, I think so. I think most people know that I'm a big fan of After Nick, but I'll be honest. I think that their transaction support is not good enough, to be quite simple. It's just, uh, I think we've come to expect a far faster and better SLA when it comes to completing transactions, from Dan to Spaceship to just about anyone, to be honest. And um, you know, in this particular case, I'll give the example. So I sold a domain for 100K. It was on an LTL. Um, I got the notification, 1 a.m., something like that. Woke up in the morning, expected to have the transfer instructions. Um, didn't have them. Waited the entire day. Still didn't have them. It says that they can take up to 3 business days to provide the transfer instructions. So another day goes by, day two, nothing. And day three, which was today, I just got the instructions, so started a transfer. Now, another few hours have gone by, and there's no transfer hasn't been complete. But I think my point is that once they provided me the instructions, what if I decided then to take three business days before even starting the transfer, right? I mean, if they're allowed to have 3 business days, I'm a business too. Why can't I take 3 business days? And then you got weekends, and then now we're going to see how long it takes for them to accept the transfer and start the transfer. And meanwhile, this buyer has already made payment to start using the domain. Um, I just don't. To be honest, I just don't think that's good enough, in my opinion. And I think that it's hard to argue with that. I don't think that it should take that long to provide support on a transfer. And it's not a guess. It's not a shot in the dark. I think we've got plenty of examples to show that the SLA should be much much faster than that. So that's my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, and you're right about when a buyer, he spent his money, and then it doesn't mean as soon as he gets it, he can activate it. He might need to contact his people to say, hey, the administrator, he might just be like, hey, I run the company. I don't know what name servers we need to set it at. Once we get it, I'm going to ask my tech guy, and then we're going to set up something that looks okay, even if it's a beginning page. So you're right. It can, I mean, basically somebody pays, and then I guess that part's on them, but how fast they can, get it going once it's in their hands. But still,
I mean, they do a lot of transactions, right? And I would say 90% of them are solved with automation, either via fast transfer or, once you input an auth code and either do a manual transfer, it's still automated on the Afternic side. So, most of the time, TA doesn't have to get involved at all. So, like, and other marketplaces, let's say like Spaceship, doesn't have that same automation, yet the response time is, I mean, forget days, minutes. So I understand they're a publicly traded company, and I understand they got a lot going on, and I fully support them, and I think they're very good. But in my opinion, that's just not a good buyer experience. If I'm a buyer of a domain and I'm spending 100K on a domain, I don't expect to be unable to use the domain for the half of my first month. I don't think that's fair.
I just thought of a great way you can make money. First of all, be your first subscriber. So I pay you $100 a month. You add my email to your notifications at Afternic. So in the middle of the night when I'm just taking my eighth piss, I can go, hey, a name sold. It won't be mine, but I look at my phone in the middle of the night to see if I sold one, and it just says, don't be stupid. My phone's smart enough to go, don't, just turn it off, idiot. Try not to pee on your feet or something. I don't know. But yeah, if you would let me see your sales, boy, that'd be good enough for me. Just I could go like this. Whoa, we sold one. I always act like it's a team anyway. All these guys I partner with when Chad does any transactions, and he did a big one recently. Big one. He can't even tell me all of it, but he let out a few secrets. But I act like they're mine. Because why? Because I want to. It's nobody's business how I feel about myself, or I feel myself and all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
Josh, no.
they're going slow at the moment, man. They are. I mean, I had a domain sell via fast transfer May 30th. Transfer complete May 30th. Nothing since then. Zero. Not so we've had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so we're on the fourth business day since it sold. And I just sent a follow up in the messages saying, transfer was complete 4 days ago. What's going on? Why has nothing happened? Why is there no payout? Why is there no communication? It's just I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There's definitely that they need some TA transaction assurance needs some work in Afternic, in my opinion. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has experienced those kind of issues.
Yeah, and you mentioned it was sort of, I don't know, I forget the term I'm looking for. I always do, but about a comment that you made about uh, sending
Todd,
nice
you're on mute.
comments, compliments
Take
to the,
hold of the conversation.
huh? Oh, sorry, I fucked up. I was on mute. Hey, okay, about when you were saying sending compliments to these brokers, and I think it's not a bad idea sometimes. Really, just a reminder. But of course, when you're reminding, you might say, "Hey, yeah, don't let this one get away." I certainly have done that before. It's like, "Hey, don't let this one get away for the small amount that's separating their offer and my price. So let me know. Don't let this one slip." But so you're nice sometimes. You compliment them or try to motivate them to sell the stuff, but you get pretty firm with them. Like with this, they're not transferred. I'd be walking around if it was $100,000 deal, and I know that one. I'd be walking around like I want this one to close. I want this one. Well, they did. You said they did pay. You just didn't get the transfer instructions and the payout. And basically until you complete your part of it, the payout's going to
Oh
continue
no,
with
yeah,
them.
I'm not expecting a payout. This what I was just talking about then was just on a completely different name. It was like a
Right.
fast transfer
No,
name.
I got you. And,
The
and that the
like
100
this
was a
this this
okay.
other name this other name I'm not expecting any kind of payout. I just want to get the name transferred. I want to finish doing my part of the deal so that the buyer can have it. Like I don't care. Like I don't need to get the money right now. Again, this is purely from like I don't know. I'm thinking like an operator, and if I'm running a business and I've got a buyer, I've taken a buyer's funds, I want to get them the domain as soon as possible. So if you're not even providing the transfer instructions to the seller so that you can take the domain and provide it to the buyer, if you're not doing that, you know, in my opinion, that needs to be done within a couple of hours, not 3 days.
Yes. I mean, glad you bring that up. That's one thing. So, we've built this domainescrow.com, and we're going to start doing transactions that are less than $5,000. And the key is efficiency. Okay, of course, everything needs to be done appropriately and make sure there's no mistakes. But still, when someone pays, as soon as the transaction's agreed upon, then I think, all right, this person needs to, it's like basically I look at it like a ping pong. Okay, you pay. All right, you transfer the name. All right, you confirm that you've received the name, and then okay, the payout needs to be made right then. Basically, bing, 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 bing. Not like bing. Okay, let's wait. He's going to hit it back later. He's going to hit it back later. And especially when I think about handling an escrow service through lawyers, my experience with lawyers is, yeah, they're. It's nice to work with attorneys, but they'll, like I said, it needs to be everything needs to be really watched or prodded along at every point. All right, the buyer paid. All right, the name needs to be transferred. All right, like no, there should be no stopping. The buyer paid, the name transferred, confirm you got it. As soon as you can confirm that you got it. As soon as we get payment, transfer the name. Be ready to transfer. We want you to, but you got these different parties involved, and sometimes you're dealing obviously with brokers too, who are you speak with them on behalf of their seller or buyer. But the point is, yeah, I think it's the speed. It should almost be just fluid. No delays. There should be no delays. Once the transaction starts, everyone should understand. We're gonna hit the ball to you. You hit the ball back. You hit the ball until it's done, and then I'll grab the ball as the administrator of the escrow. We're done. Everything's done. He got his money. He got his name, and now you guys can go back to laying on the couch and effing around. But soon as you enter into a transaction, let's complete this transaction and let's get each party what they got involved for, the domain name and the funds. But you say that, Josh, about yeah, just wanting as a business, you just want things to be done. It's sort of like at any business, they come up, pay for it. I'll put it in a bag for you and now get out of the store. Then we go into the next one. No one need to loiter around. This is a transaction. Let's get this thing done. But I notice with, a lot of issues that people have with some things about escrow.com, I won't get into, but then dealing with attorneys, then, attorneys that notoriously never call people back. No, they won't call you back. And then, so when and I've dealt with different lawyers with regards to escrow over the years, and yeah, they, they're not in enough of a rush for me, especially when it comes to payouts. It's like, should be right on it. Um, about brokers, what do you think a broker's job is? Hey, this is an open conversation. Any of you, I'll call you names. Any of you can come up here and talk about it. But what do you consider a broker's job is, Josh? And I say that, like, do you believe as soon as people submit a name to a broker and a broker says, you know what, here, okay, I will take it on. I think it's okay, and you got the price of 60,000. I can make a little bit of money on it. You sign my brokerage agreements, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, who knows? They're all different. And then you agreed to my fee. Okay, what's the first thing you think a broker should do when he takes on a name?
I think that's very much dependent on the name and several other factors, I would say. But you know, I think it can be summed up quite simply as that a broker's job is to optimize, the chances of selling that domain for the best possible price. Um, for each individual that owns the domain, that might be a different objective. But in terms of timeline, in terms of um, price, but the uh, the general outcome is that the broker is basically helping the owner achieve whatever the owner's goal is with that name. Um, so if I want to liquidate a name and I want to use a broker, then it's his job to liquidate it for the best possible price. If I want to be patient and sell a name at retail, you know, and I don't want to deal with the inquiries, or fully I'm not fully capable of dealing with the inquiries in a way that is going to optimize the outcome, then that's what the broker's job is. What should they be doing once they take on a name? Again, it just depends. I personally, if I'm using a broker, I'm not using them because I want them to outbound a name, but other people might expect that. So up front, you have to discuss those expectations. It's the same thing with if you're wanting to sell your house or rent out your house or whatever. You talk to the broker and you say, these are my expectations, and I want you to use your network. I don't want you to use the network. I want it off market. I want you to, I may ask you not to list it on the MLS. I may ask you to list it on the MLS. I may uh, be willing to take a lower price for different terms. It's no difference. It's no difference with domains.
Yeah, good points. No, I mean, agreeing on expectations. And it is true. I mean, you need to have that conversation with the broker because you could say, "Hey, I'm bringing this to you because it's just weird. In the last year, I've had it seems like 3, 4 separate entities contacting me about this and made some reasonable offers. We couldn't reach any agreements. So I would like for you to take a look at these communications that I've had, and then reach out to these people and see if they're for real and if they're different. So um, that makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, like you said, you could, if you're upfront with your broker and say, listen, this is a great name. I've always had it priced at this. I've never really had any inquiries. Not sure how to go about, how we should market this thing. But I do like to hear from, brokers who, basically these different scenarios, because it is true. People, I can't even think of it because I mean, I'm not a broker, but who different scenarios of people bringing different types of names, different instances, exactly like you said, Josh, where someone says, hey, listen, it gets inquiries. I don't have anything too hot right now, but um, would like to get the maximum price out of this. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're either saying, "Listen, I don't have time for this, and I'm willing to pay you for your time to, achieve what, I want to achieve out of this asset," or you're saying, you have better expertise than I do in this area, and for that, I want to pay you for your expertise. It's basically one or the other. Um, you know, for me, if someone's brokering my name, it's generally because I don't want to put the time into it, and so I'm paying them for their time. But for many people who perhaps aren't great salespeople or don't have much knowledge on the domain space or don't feel comfortable, potentially having to get on the phone on larger deals, or don't speak English as a first language and maybe don't communicate well via email, then maybe you're paying that broker for their expertise.
speaking of not speaking English in the first language, I'd like to hear from Bruce. No, I'd like to hear from a few people. I know Shane runs his own brokerage, and Ish has been a broker before. So I would love it if you guys could share on when someone brings you a name, different scenarios. So how there are different instances of how different expectations that sellers have, and then from Bruce and guys like Bruce and Adam who are domain owners that have worked with brokers, what type of conversations do they have with their brokers before they enter into an arrangement? But like to hear from both angles because I know it does make sense. I was thinking what should a broker's job entail, and it really there's just so many different types of brokers, and now we hear buy side brokers, and you usually do wear several hats. But Ish, thanks for joining us. What comments do you have about this topic and about when you're approached to help sell a name? How do you try to gauge expectations of the seller?
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? I don't know. I feel like everyone who does outbounding can broker names, but obviously, being a domain broker comes with a certain set of responsibility and ethics and expectations that have to be discussed, because sometimes people feel like, oh, I have this name and I've given it to a broker, and it's simply a matter of waiting for a sale. So I think those things needs to be outlined. Not every name is what brokering, and sometimes you can even save a friendship by just being candid and being like, I don't think this is worth my time. But I have brokered some names, and it pays very well, because typically it's a perfect other people's money strategy. Someone has a good name, they don't want to deal with the rejection of outbound, or it's just not what they do actively, but they know that you have some sort of visibility or a platform or a way that you can add more visibility for that name, which increases the odds, like Josh said. So I think it's simply a matter of outlining expectations and docking them up. The documentation part is important, because people tend to think, oh yeah, I outsourced that problem, and they get mad at the broker when they can't move the needle, where it's not a guarantee of a sale.
Hey, Bruce, and thanks, Shane, for joining us too. Bruce, when you take a name to a broker, and I know, what type of conversation do you have with a broker, and what are frustrations that you have, once it leaves your hands? Because now you've signed an agreement and you have, the broker handling it. What are, things that you would sort of recommend to others before you get involved with a broker or in a brokerage agreement? Be sure to, think about these things. Please go
Well,
ahead.
since we're being recorded, I'm going to be nice. Uh, the main thing that I require on any broker that I want to deal with is communication. And all I ask is at the end of each month, just give me an update. This is how many people we contacted. We got back this kind of response. We even got back no response. And every single broker I've ever dealt with, everyone that on, I'll wait till day number like 35, and then I'll say, hey, can I get an update? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I get the update. And then for the rest of the term, never an update unless I go to them and ask them for one. So to me, communication and just give me updates is the key for me. And never had that with any broker, not one.
I think that's a good point, Bruce. I think that the fact that there is not a broker that has kind of like a monthly report roundup that goes out to the owners is actually somewhat shocking to me. I feel like
And,
that
I,
should
and
be.
I've dealt with some big brokers, and not one of them will take the time and just send an update. I don't even care who they contacted. Just say, hey, Bruce, we did some, and we contacted, you know, 35 people this week or this month. Uh, a few people showed a little bit of interest. We're still dealing with this. That's all. Just give me something. But if you
I
get
mean,
nothing, it's like, what the fuck are they doing?
I have a feeling that at least one guy on this call will probably do something like that.
Is that me?
That's you. That's you.
Yeah, we
Well,
give.
let's say I've never dealt with Shane yet, okay? And I'm
I,
sure when I will, that I will get a monthly update.
I'm going to tell you this: the ridiculousness of the lack of compression of time and communication in our industry is the worst I've ever seen in any industry. Um, Communication's everything, right? You're giving someone they're giving us their baby and their asset. We're doing weeklies, and maybe because we're smaller, but if you're using HubSpot and you're using all these SaaS tools, it's an easy report. It's literally takes 5 minutes to let them know what successes you've had, who you've talked to, and negatives. Like if nobody responded, you let them know that too, right? Like that's part of the deal too. There'll be weeks where nothing happens at all. You say, "Hey, nothing happened." There's nothing wrong with that. So I agree with you. I'm working with other brokers, and the lack of time, like things that should be done in 3 or 4 days, I'll get an email at the end of the week on just a response, and then every time that happens, the time frame goes from a 2 week transaction to a 4 week transaction because they're waiting so long. Maybe they're busier than me. That's what Sean and I tell ourselves, is maybe everybody has so many names that they can't get back to us on what's going on. So again, I found the frustration being on the other side. I'm not saying we're better. Maybe when we get more names, we'll be worse off. But I will say that when you hire a broker, the purpose of a broker is to open doors you can't open, to at some points be anonymous, right? So you can be the middleman and go in and represent them without actually having to show face. And the other thing is to keep things organized and get you the highest price based on their experience and knowledge. We're new to this, but we do have pretty good experience. Again, I'm not saying I have been. Drew has been so great and helpful to me. Andrew Miller, I can't say enough about those two men, how they've kind of sat us down and helped us through the process that I don't know because we're new. I'm good because of those two. I've learned more in the last 2 months about brokerage that I didn't know. I didn't know anything, but getting back to the original point, communication is the easiest thing for anybody to do. It doesn't take expertise in domain brokerage to know how to communicate your process. So I agree. That's one of the easiest things to do. Opening the doors is the hardest. There's, Andrew Miller and Drew are some of the best people in the world for being able to communicate and find buyers. But when it comes to outbound, it's a tough one, especially on the generics that don't really have an exact person to go to. Outbounding's tough when you have a name that means nothing. That means the whole world is a potential opportunity. So where do you start? So outbound's a really, really tough business. It's a slow process. You don't get many rewards. It's a spray and pray method, but there are some that are better than others at doing it.
I, I think it's just a matter of setting those expectations. Like, if your frustrations, Bruce, as being the people don't communicate, then you have to have those discussions before an agreement is reached. Like, I expect a report bi-weekly or every month or every week. And if they agree to those
Yes, I
terms,
do. I do
then
that
they'll
with
be in
every.
breach.
I do that with every one of them. Every one of them. Okay, and I've not. They've never followed through. And when you get to the point where you feel like you're bothering them because you're asking them for this, it's you just get so frustrated. And these are good people. They're good people. They just I don't get it. I don't get it. And
Y-
back to the Andrew Miller thing. You mentioned I sent him a message this morning on LinkedIn regarding something I built on Mr. Baseball, and nothing regarding brokerage. Within 5 minutes, this guy gets back to me, and we have a whole conversation, and we're gonna have a call set up for next week, not about brokering a name, but that's the kind of service I want when I'm dealing with somebody who's brokering a name that I'm giving them. So I believe me, the first thing they say, what do you expect? I said, let me tell you what I want. I want you to sell the name, but if you don't, that's cool. Just communicate with me monthly on where we are, what you've done, and where we stand. That's it.
I take that personal, Bruce. They don't want to. Hey, Shane, I wanted to ask you. You've savvy in this business. You've been around a long time, but of course, you take on this new position. You're founded a company with Sean Winterline. It's a brokerage. What surprised you most about brokerage that you didn't know, even though you're right next to it for 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I didn't know, but you never realize on the outbound side how let's take this back. What I didn't know is working with all the other domain companies and brokerage would be such a slow process. Like the process of, we're trying to hunt down owners of domain names. And so you kind of have to go and work with the registrars on finding these people. Um, and they do have the inside. They have their emails and they can start that process. Or perhaps another broker represents a registrar and handles that process. There's no response. You say, "Hey, I'm looking for that." They get it to you. GoDaddy's been really good about getting it to you, and then they'll either go find it or you can go find the person yourself. But the communication, like I said, it just takes forever to even get the first contact or the email or get a response from them that they contacted them. And then if they tell you they contacted them, you'll never hear from them again unless you say, "Have you heard from them in the last 2 or 3 weeks? Have you tried again?" Like you don't know what the process is. So it actually takes back to the first conversation. The time the amount of time to take any action in our industry takes forever. And that's where I've greatly underestimated the time to sell a domain name or do a buy side because I didn't have the experience. I did not realize how long it can take. So when I'm representing a name too, I really, I would say, messed up the contracts. You know, we thought 6 months is no problem for domain, even 3 months. That's not true at all. I mean, this can take 6 months or a year. It's just a much longer process. And I said, I thought I could compress the time by being more organized and more on it than others, and it's not. It takes two parties, and the other side's not getting any faster.
Takes two to tango. Yeah, I know. I mean, interesting, Shane. I mean, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, you would think. I mean, I know now, and you're good at it too. The relationships. So you would like to have a strong relationship with an important person at each different registrar. Let's say that works with you just at least reasonably. You can't always have the top guy going, yeah, let me drop everything and see who that is, and then we'll send him a message and I'll get back with you tomorrow or later today. But yeah, it's I guess these relationships with people at the registrars, I can see mean more, especially on the buy side. Let me. I have a question about when someone comes. Okay, so I have somebody that wants to buy a name. Somebody comes to me. It's an attorney and says, "Hey, I have a client who wants to buy this name," and then they come to me, and then I come to you, and there's like 9 parties involved. We all want to get something out of it. What kind of deals? I mean, how do you work things like that with multiple brokers or somebody who wants a finder's fee? I'm just curious because a lot of us, somebody and we don't mind, I'm like, I've always just, you hand it off and the good stuff comes back to you. You don't always there to try to get a piece. But in the real estate business, there's got a $1,500 finder's fee for just didn't even expect it because I sent over a lead. How are you handling that, Shane, with regards to finder fees or, you know, people sending you, I guess just leads and potential customers, clients?
Yeah, I mean, we'll carve out anything, anybody that brings us a lead that's successful, I'll carve it out. But generally, we do a 10% finder's fee. So if 10% of what we make goes to anybody that generates a lead, so we have quite a few people now in San Francisco and in like the VC world that literally just feed us because I figured that's the best way to meet people that can get us leads is to let them know that they can profit from it. So they're not really pimping out their friends. But I will say there's a couple YC Combinator people and a couple people in Miami that send us all their buy side because they know that they'll get paid for it and their friends will get helped and well communicated, right? So when you're giving a friend or an acquaintance to somebody, um, that you need to be the champion and you don't want to hand them to somebody that does a shitty job because it makes you look bad. So my job, if somebody gets me a lead, I really have two jobs. One, to take the lead and make it successful. The other one is to make the person that gave me the lead look like a hero so more people give them leads. But yeah, I carve out 100% carve out anybody that's in the process that leads to it that I don't feel that there would be success without them involved should get a cut.
Josh, how many brokerage agreements are you doing right now? Like, how many names do you have brokers working on? Dozen, two, not many. I mean, are you working with brokers? The guys are in your space.
From my portfolio,
Yeah,
I mean, Afternic is technically brokering my whole portfolio, right?
yeah,
Just by listing my names on Afternic and using Afternic landers, you're essentially using Afternic as your broker. They're just
sure.
we
But
just
I'm
don't.
talking about these individuals. Like, do you have any? You don't have it. Like all of us are under that. We have
No,
that terms of service agreement, but not a brokerage agreement. Uh, signed with them. So do you have any out there like you hooked up with Monty and you can't get out of it? Anything?
no, I don't. I have in the past. Oh well, I guess I have with domainnames.com, but again, that's essentially just after. It's essentially just a 24-month exclusive Afternic contract because That's all it actually is. Like, they're not doing any promotion beyond domain names.com. Like, nobody's finding that website and then browsing them. They're not doing any kind of paid promotions on. They're not doing any like ads or anything like Atom does. So yeah, that essentially we're about almost a year into that now, and that was essentially just a 24-month exclusive afternet contract. So can't say I'm thrilled about that either.
Did you price that name that you got in domainnames.com?
I think I have. It's more than one name, maybe 10 names.
Jeez, that's one of those That's one of those clubs. Bruce is standing out at the door, and they're like, "No, you can't come in. Just keep changing your clothes and keep coming back." Bruce, I'm just telling you
No,
because I
yeah.
love
I
you.
mean, again, you guys hear me talk nothing but positives about GoDaddy. I love them. I love GoDaddy, but I guess I'm not definitely not thrilled about that situation at all, because I was told that there was going to be a big push this year, a big effort into domainnames.com, that they were going after that ultra premium market. They wanted to compete with Atom. They're not even close. Not even playing the same game. So yeah,
Yeah,
not happy with
I
that.
don't see any promotion around that. And boy, anyway, I have a lot of thoughts on them using the domainnames.com, especially when they, in one breath, sometimes they'll say, um, it's, names, we see their appraisals, how the value of names, but yet they must feel that domainnames.com is hugely valuable and was really going to, I don't know, is there type in traffic for domainnames.com? I,
I mean, if there is, it's not the kind of type in traffic that you want.
I was looking for a name for $8, 800,000. A
I don't know.
Yeah, well, why we got the
Is
um,
my I mean, I'm is it even working right now? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, they did change it, huh? Looks like they've changed it since the last time I saw it.
let me check it out. Domain names. It's a pretty good name. That was one they bought from, I think,
Yeah, they
Frank.
upgraded it. They vibe coded it with Claude. That's what happened.
Did they?
Yeah, that's the only change I see.
Yeah,
Gladiator.
I mean, listen, I've on that ultra premium domain like topic, you know, Atom are undoubtedly creating value around um around ultra premium domains. I see the advertisements. I see the time and money that they're spending on the platform, and you don't see that from anyone else. I don't think so. It's no surprise that they're doing well with the high end of the market.
Yeah, and Adam's refining what they're doing too with regards to marketing. They're always trying to improve it and aren't opposed to spending even more going, forward. It's not like, okay, we've spent a lot and they have, and they've mentioned it. Um, but just constantly thinking, listen, no one's, we're wanting to be a true champion in this space, spend more. What is the best way to market? And we do need to get eyes, and it's just not easy. Shane mentioned, outbounding. It's like, it's weird in this business. It's always been the same where you have a name, you put it more a for sale lander page, and those escrow.com report, even when it came out this last quarter, this is the first time that a raw domain name, no content, average price was more than a domain with content. And we consider that's a website, right? Usually it's a website, potentially a business that's generating money. But they're saying, yeah, just a domain name is getting a better price than a domain that has content and maybe even traffic. That's according to transactions that they've processed in the last quarter. But yeah, so we would always just set it and forget it, and that was domain investing. And then So then to do outbound, which, Bruce, we got to revisit with you about outbounding. Everybody always comes to you because you outbound, especially a lot of real estate names and so on. But has anything changed for you in the last 6 months? Basically here in 2026, we know a lot of us know of your experience outbounding over the years, but have you done anything different? Is outbounding more difficult, less? Are you doing the same amount of it? Tell us a little bit about your
Well, I'm
outbounding.
what I'm doing now is I'm building sites to go along with the domains and selling that together, and
So,
that's been pretty. That's done very well for me the last couple months.
like an example, like San Antonio Homes or something like that. I
Uh,
know that's
like uh, KC Homes for Sale. So I built that, and and then a few other ones that mostly in real estate, some in law, and then so instead of selling a domain for 500-600, you're getting 5-6x that.
and quickly, just when you're going to do outbound, how are you still getting your lists? Do you subscribe to places to get attorneys in that area, or how are you searching and finding your lists of the
Through
people you're?
Google. But what I've done lately is I've gone back to a lot of my clients I've sold names to over the years and offered to build them a site to go with the name that they just had forwarded, and that's worked out pretty well.
I can tell you that if you're not using AI and pipeline and Clay and LinkedIn Navigator and and using your claw to attach all those to find your prospective clients, you're leaving things on the table because right now you can start with a good list saying, I need anybody that's raised over 50 million rounds, 50 million in the latest round, or has an ARR of 50 million, that's in this category that would be good for this name. You can have it read through research papers and through funding rounds on Crunchbase, and you just have it go through, and it's a great starting point. Then you go to LinkedIn Navigator, you look through to see the decision makers, and then you can use their lookalike at the bottom. It does a great job of saying this company does that, but also these other 12 companies were searched by people that are in the same category. So it gives you a little bit more heads up. So you can go down a rabbit hole and come up with a good email list and then fill it with Apollo or fill it with Clay and enrich those contacts to where your leads that were really more if you don't already have the doors open, a lot of the biggest brokers can make a phone call and already get to those companies, but everybody else, it really gives you a more definitive, targeted audience or a client list or targets and than you would ever before. So AI has made a huge difference in time savings and actually better targets than there were a year ago. You just have to pay up for all the SaaS tools.
Is Sedo going out of business? People talked about that. I was going to bring up a Sedo sale, but Josh, do you hear anything about that? Sedo? I don't know. Some of the I remember.
Yeah, I mean, they won't go. They won't go out of business. That's for sure. Um, yeah, there's too much value to just go out of business.
Somebody paid my. I heard that Nina, who I know is a broker there, she's no longer there, but I know Dave Evanson and Mark, Mr. Premium are still around there. But now I say that because, Josh, they sold AF.org for 60 grand, and you said, well, that was cheap.
Yeah,
What,
they deserve to go out of business after that one. Sheesh.
what do you think of? I mean, so two-letter.org, I have no idea. Hear what these
The only
other.
time they don't deserve to go out of business on sales like that is when they sell them to me. 60 grand. 60 grand is a hard. It's tough spot because it's a little pricey for an investor, but way cheap for like an end user buyer, even like a hobbyist buyer, because AF is an incredible two-letter combination. The best, A plus plus. So especially with .org. So the buyer got a good deal. Honestly, even if an investor bought that for 60 grand, not bad.
Any thoughts, the rest of you guys? Ish, what do you think? AF.org. I mean, you don't buy, I never hear you saying much about 2 or 3 or 4 letter, like random acronyms, and then definitely .org. But what do you think? AF.org.
Yeah, I'm certainly priced out of 2 letters and 3 letters for the most part, but I did sell nouns.org for 50 grand, and I've been a fan of .org since then. I think AF.org is underpriced at 60 grand. I agree with Josh on that. It's a great find for whoever picked that up. A lot of upside potentially. And 2 letter.orgs are just super rare. We rarely hear of any similar sales, but a 2 letter legacy CLT like .org is amazing.
These nouns.org for 50,000. That's big. I'm gonna set your pronouns at they them because fuck, that's a lot
No,
of people.
it was a crypto protocol called Nouns, and they're securing. It's a DAO, and in crypto, a lot of the DAOs and foundations all use .org. Like Ethereum is Ethereum.org, Solana is Solana.org. So they're usually buyers of .org that fit that narrative for them.
Yeah, I think most of us, when we hear Dow, we think of Tony Dow, Wally on the Leave It to Beaver. Okay. Yeah, there was. Oh, yeah, about when we were talking about brokers and stuff. Um, Josh, what do you think? And Shane, I look forward to hear what you and Ish think too. Well, certainly you too, Bruce. And that's about, people used to say, yeah, posting, names that you're representing, whether it's on X or on LinkedIn. And all the big brokers do it too. They just slide them in there. Like, I see, Drew over Media Options, but yeah, can you believe it? We have human, or, I think they sold that one. But, always sliding in. You like for people to know that, yeah, you are representing this name now and it is available, even though sometimes we know our audiences on X or a lot of other domainers, but it is widening. But Josh, first I wanted to ask you, because you're who I go to first. All that is, what do you think about brokers posting some of their inventory on social media?
Um, Low impact, but maybe no downside. So in the off chance that, you know, a past client or even someone who just follows them sees it's worth doing. But yeah, overall low impact, but yeah, almost no downside.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on in my opinion. Shane, what do you think? I mean, I know, how's it going to hurt to make people aware that a name is available? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a new broker, it's social proof, just kind of showing what we're doing and just keeping us top of mind. You're not going to sell any domains most likely through that, although again, you have nothing to lose. So I agree with Josh. You really have nothing to lose. It's not very hard to post. I will say the best, most profitable, are the ones you can't post when you're doing stealth acquisitions or sales. Those are actually the better ones because they want to keep everything private. So you can't put everything, but you do have to show your wares and what you do, and it's just good for business.
Ish, didn't you sell one by posting on there before? And what do you think about that, making people aware this way?
It wasn't a name that I was brokering, but I've sold a few names by just posting them on X. I think it's a best practice. I don't think you have anything to lose. Sometimes it's good for price discovery, it depends on depending on how you post it, but it's part of the whole leaving all stones untouched, like you want to create visibility for the name, and X is a very meaningful platform, and depending on your follower demographic, some people outside of the domain or echo chamber might, you know, reach out.
I think it's important that these, especially reputable business people, do post it, because then it's like people from the outside that do see it realize, hey, they're not going to jump on and say, "Hey, what are you, a cyber squatter, Rosner?" And he's not going to take that. Shane wouldn't. I know Brooke wouldn't. Meaning, these are professionals. This is a real, this is a real job. And when you say inquire if you're interested in that name, I like that. I mean, basically, you want it to be. You want people to know domain names are assets that are for sale, and I think it makes sense. Like you said, no downside. But Bruce, have you had any success doing that ever? I mean, posting names, and then I've seen you say, "Hey, I got Mr. Baseball and Gourmet Foods," and you let people know that they are available to pick up. What do you think? Is there any success there?
No, never. I mean, I've sold a name maybe a week or two after I posted, so who knows where they came from? Because I did do outbound and I did put on social media, uh, but maybe one or maybe two names over the years.
Yeah, that was a dead topic. All right, well, fuck it. So, NameBio posted about this, some pretty cool data about all those LTOs, and I thought it was interesting. Josh, did you see that? No, they 900, was it 920 LTOs total that they've had? I was thinking they had that many live right now, but it was actually, or I'm sorry, 290 LTO deals that they were saying. They were basically looking at how many canceled and so on. But did you see that post?
Was that NameBio?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, they said like 20. They said our raw cancellation rate was 27%, which what he meant is, yeah, the ones that are still going doesn't mean that they're not going to cancel. So it seemed like that's pretty high. 27% of the ones that they've ever had, canceled, and then of course there's still going to be some more cancellations out of those 290. But so out of the 290, they said they had 78 cancellations. 28 of them made only one payment. 40 of them made out of 70 made at most two payments. Okay, so that's out of the 78, so 40 of the 70. But I don't know. Those numbers don't surprise me. I've had, I don't know. I mean, I've had two or three cancel, and they, but it's weird. Normally they go 5 or 6 months and then they cancel. But what are you doing to try to prevent this, Josh? Just shorter LTO times, and then I guess Adam lets you beef up the down payment, don't they? I mean, how can you prevent this, the LTOs, from canceling anything?
Yeah, I mean, my cancellation rate is not is not bad. It's not massively different. I've only been using LTO for a little over a year. Well, just about a year actually. And in that year, on Afternic, I was using it a little bit on Dan and a little bit on Atom prior to that, and I'm not really sure what my stats are on that, but I'm just looking at my Afternic here. In the last year, I've had 10 cancel. No, sorry, 9 cancel. And I've had 11 complete, 9 cancel, 11 complete, and 17 ongoing. So
28, and then the 9 makes 37, and so 9 out of 37 is 25%, we'll say. So 25% have canceled, and then you're right with them. They were at
yeah,
27%, then the ongoing, we don't know what's going to happen,
yeah, it's right around the same, yeah. And my terms are typically around, a lot of them are 6 months, some 12. The largest term I have is 20. Oh no, I've got 130 as well, but that's 100K. I've got another 20-month one, but that's 100K. Yeah, average size is 18,000. So I mean, I, you know, it's definitely worth. LTO has definitely been worth it for me. Definitely allowed like bigger names to move. Um, a couple $100,000 deals, couple 50, 160, 140. Um, you got to think that without the LTO, those deals might not have moved. So, um, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of LTO.
You're like a regular car dealer. People driving your cars around town. Hey, that's a nice one. You spent 60 on that. Pay your insurance. Um, the no, I mean, I think consensus is LTOs are worthwhile. They even on the low end where NameBio was saying under $500 they cancel pretty much the same rate. As soon as the payment's over $500, he said the cancellation rate drops by 50%. But I think we all agree that LTO is good. Only every once in a while you'll get somebody who says, they took my name and then I probably could have sold it and they were paying. I had a 48-month or 60-month lease, term, and they were paying a low payment, and that 6 months that they had it, they, I could have sold it for more. But I think, people, there are a few complaints, or if somebody ruins a name, I guess, by they did something with it, and now I'm black ball listed anyway. But yeah, LTO, I think is definitely
I think
positive.
if you go beyond, like 30-ish months, 36 months, default rate goes up pretty high. I think it probably doubles, but yeah, I would say for the most part, you probably want to cap your terms at no more than 36.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think even 6 or 12 months is a nice option for buyers to know, okay, so we can get our shit straight, basically get our finances ready. They're giving us 6 months, they're giving us a year to, handle this. Once, I do think definitely if you're willing to go longer, they certainly like it. If you offer 24 months or 36 months, they'll take advantage of it. But yeah,
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I have three names on LTOs with Unstoppable on 10-year plans. It's just like I feel like I just got the name for free.
yeah. You got any ish? What are you laughing at?
Josh is comment about buying names at LTO. Definitely resonate with that. I've picked up a couple of dictionary words on LTO, and sometimes I haven't canceled any, but I can understand why people cancel some of these LTO names.
What kind of
Because,
dictionary?
I have rebuilds.com, probables.com. I picked up on LTO, concierge, which is sort of like well, it's not the best, but it's not bad. But these are names that I wouldn't pick up if they weren't on LTO. So I think, it also creates that opportunity for you to acquire names and spread out the payment, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I probably got 25 names on LTO with Huge as well. Like those are shorter LTOs, typically like 12-month LTOs. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're giving me the option to pay over time as opposed to pay it all at right now, it makes sense to pay over time most of the time. So
And they got you like when you LTO over at Adam. They know who you are. You don't want to go. I just want to default. They think, hey, how come you're not making a payment? You're like, especially when you're a domain investor and we're part of this. But you feel like fucking smart enough. I decided I wanted this name for that price, and now every month, like I
yeah,
bad
you
enough.
just get cheeky with them. You just respond back to them. And what you gonna do? What you gonna do about it? You gonna ding my credit report? No, move along.
Right? And it's bad enough you got all these renewal fees, and then you realize, no, I'm out buying fucking names on an LTO. I mean, what's got my head up my ass here? But No, yeah, people don't. Of course, domainers don't talk about those expenses too much too. You're talking expenses that you have your, all the money you spend on new domain names, all your renewals, and then of course the money you're spending on new names. Some of them are LTOs, and you got monthly payments there, monthly fees. But domainers act like, yeah, I bought that name. I got that name for $150. Yeah, you bought it fucking 10 years ago. You've spent that much at least on renewals. So they act like it's no big deal. When I sell it, I'll make all that money back. Yeah, but we know you don't sell 100% of your names, and then there's just so many renewals. I think, I want my friends to have success. I don't want anybody to lose money in the domain business. I think, if you want to take big risks like you're doing, Josh, with running a registrar. Okay, well, you're wanting to get into business as a registrar. This is different than your domain investing business. And if you're, whether it's, Adam wants to have a marketplace and a registrar, and you're doing similar stuff. And then whether it's like I said, you're a licensed or approved registrar, or you're a registry. Well, I want them to even be successful. I don't, I hope they have good business plans and they're successful. But I'm much more on the side of the domain investor. I want them to be successful. But like we see there's some of us. I believe I was talking with Larry earlier, who, I know I was talking with Larry earlier, but we talked about just reducing the sizes of our portfolios and other things too on our bodies. Anyway, we were reducing the size of our portfolios, and right. I've already had sold a few names this year, and it paid. I only got 950 names or whatever. It maybe got $10,000. Well, $10,000 I know is not cheap for folks. Say 10 or 12,000, a grand a month. But when you're used to paying 50, 60,000 in renewals for a decade, that's like, geez, this is nothing. I mean, you feel like, it's just basically walking up you're taking 50 pounds off your back, and now it's only 10 pounds, and you're like, this is nothing. But there's several folks, and I always think of two now, and that's Arif going from 1,000 names to 5,000, and then our friend Renee going from, in the last couple of years, from a few hundred names to 1,000, 2,000 to over 10,000. Well, now it's sort of like, now the shit hits the fan. Both different types of investors, but to increase that amount, you notice it in your expenses, you notice it in your renewals. And then, like I said, in addition to the renewals, you had to spend money to get from 1,000 names to 5,000, and then 1,000 names to 10,000. So there's a big expense in the acquisition costs. And then as you're doing that over the years, there's, like I said, all the renewals. So, you're really, it's just like being at the crap table, and every time the point comes out, you make money, you don't take it off the table. You're like, okay, give me a fucking $1,000 hard 10. You just keep betting, and you got it on the table. And sometimes you think, oh, I'm just betting the 6 and 8. I mean, basically you think you're making some good bets and you're leaving it there, but still there can be the ultra crash. And that is like there was in the .com, so the .com crash, whatever, I forget what they called it. But anyway, you just, it's like, to me, I admire it, but I know it's risky too. And basically it's like the jury's still out. So you've got all your money on the table. You're really, taking your winnings and you're reinvesting. So that's like, I've got my eyes on those types of guys going, I really, cross my fingers for them, because I think, geez, you don't, all this good money. But I guess you're a little bit in that boat too, Josh. I know you take some money off the table, but you've your portfolio, would you say, and this is just in general terms, would you say like 2 or 3 years ago your portfolio was worth, I don't know, 20 million, and now it's worth 40 million because you've added to it, plus you've the appreciation, and maybe it's 100 million, but do you feel like your portfolio
Yeah.
is appreciated a lot?
So first and foremost, I think my portfolio is worth about what I paid for my portfolio. I'm not one of those guys that buys the name and then says immediately like it's worth 10x more than what I bought it for. People that talk about the value of their portfolio don't have a clue what they're talking about. Like when I'm valuing my portfolio, I want to know like what I could like email, 10 people that I know buy domains and what I could get out of it tomorrow. So, for me, it's probably like 2 million. And yeah, it's gone up. It has gone up in the last 2 years because I've invested a lot of money into it, um, with the hopes that I'll get that back plus some in the next 2 to 3 years. And revenues this year and last year have gone up significantly because of that. And yeah, I mean, I haven't really taken much off the table this year. I'm taking a lot more off. But yeah, I listen. The more money you put back in, the more the like better the bigger and the more compounding effect it has. Um, and it's important if you want to scale up. You have to invest it all back in. You can't be, living the lavish lifestyle, so to speak, in if you're trying to grind your way up through the ranks. And I did that for 10 years, probably just reinvesting as much as you can. And the first, 3, 4, 5 years, it doesn't feel like you're making much progress. But then suddenly year 6, it gets better. Year 7, it gets better. And before you know it, like it's actually, the reinvestment strategy is becoming more and more impactful because of that compounding. So yeah, the last 2 years have been pretty important for me. When you talk about increasing the portfolio value.
Geez, I think the cold water in a lot of people's face for you to say, I'm not overestimating my portfolio, because a lot of us, we just can't help, but you do believe I bought this and it's immediately worth 5 times, sometimes 10 or 20 times. I bought it. The pros said it's all about the buy, and I bought it, and look at me now. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like the people that I would sell it look to me for valuation. Look to me for valuation advice. When I'm selling them domains or when I'm advising that they buy names that that are either on DNX or that I've bought to them or whatever. They will frequently ask me like, what would you pay for that name, or why aren't you buying it, or and I give them the reason and whatnot. And when and they know what I'm buying my names for. And a lot of what I'm doing in terms of like on the buy side, whether it's for my portfolio or other people's portfolio, is kind of like a valuation for the aftermarket in terms of investors. So if I wanted to go out and sell my portfolio tomorrow, you best believe that they're gonna want to know roundabout like what I paid for a lot of those names. And even if I'm being difficult and don't want to tell them, they have a pretty good idea because, we talk about valuation all the time. And they're not going to want to pay an awful lot more than what I've paid for those names. So if you think that you know something and you've figured out a way to game the system in some way, you haven't. And yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot. Like if I want to get out of the game tomorrow, how much money could I get? It's
Well, I
not.
don't think you can actually ever get out of this game. There's no structured outlet, right? You
I think
know,
I could. I think I could. I think if I if I
I
emailed.
respectfully disagree.
Okay, but I. Oh,
You'll
okay.
be grossly
Hold
disappointed
on, hold on, hold on,
by
hold on,
the
hold on,
numbers
hold
you
on, hold
get.
on, hold on. There's no disagreeing. I could email. I could literally send a text message to Braden, Amar, Drew right now and say I'm selling my portfolio. This is what I want, and one of them will buy it.
Do you think you'd be pleased with the offer?
No, because it would. I've spent a lot of time like
That's my point.
working.
You would have to liquidate your portfolio, not exit.
But
To me,
that's
an
what it's
exit
worth. But
is
that's
to
what it's worth.
yeah, well, to them.
No, but that's what it's worth in the market.
Yeah, I think, and that's part of the inefficiencies that we have by being this type of asset classes. We don't have that exit outlet, right? I mean, you might have an edge because obviously you mentioned specific people that you know and you've built a relationship with. But in a more mature asset class, there's a fair market value, and there's a roster of potential buyers that want to pick up, those assets that you've curated over years, right? And there's nothing stopping domains from getting to that point, but I guess that's the opportunity and the challenge is like, how do we get to a point where someone as successful as you, who has that track record, and there's a digital trail. This is what I've been buying names for and I've been selling them for. I would like to get out of this business. How do we assess what the fair market value is, and how do we get private equity investors and other people that are seeking yield to say, oh yeah, we want to buy that guy's portfolio,
Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate a little bit on that. So I mean, I've talked about this before. Have my portfolio split into two different portfolios because they operate in a different way, and the way that I would sell them is completely different as well. I've got one portfolio of 60 names where the value you would value each name individually, and then if you wanted to buy the portfolio, it would be the accumulation of those individual prices for those domains. And if you ask me and a group of 5 to 10 other people buying similar quality names, we would all be within a certain range on those names. There's just like an agreed upon liquid value for most of those names. But then the other 12,500 names that I have in the other portfolio, um, that you wouldn't appraise those names individually at all, and like for the most part, not a single one of us would agree on each individual value. The only way to value that portfolio is based on the portfolio's sales. And so you would look at probably the last 2 years of sales, and it would be a multiple of those gross sales. Um, did I lose you guys?
No, I'm thinking,
No, no,
Josh.
no.
Hold on. If they didn't have any sales, because say you didn't have them for sale, I love the idea of I want to do. I want to do a segment, by my portfolio, and I wish, I could do the same thing. Contact Braden, Amar, and Drew, and say I'm selling my portfolio. And they're going to say, Todd, we only want these 3 names out of 900, or maybe these 30, or these. But Braden would tell me that I'm not interested in all this crap. So that's 0 for those names, which I take that as okay. So what would you pay for these 900 names? And he said, I just told you, I only like these 30. I would only take them. I wouldn't even let you transfer that other stuff into my account. And for these 30, I'm only giving you $200 each, which is now $6,000. So I'm going to give you 6,000 for your whole portfolio. And then I go over to the other 2 guys too, and they're thinking, hey, I like the few bullshit names that he liked too. And it's like I do it to Josh. I can say, Josh, I'm going to sell this. You guys aren't going to offend me by the amounts that you're going to offer. And then they say, listen, I will take these very few. I don't even want you to transfer me these others, and I'll give you this amount for these few. It's just no one likes to hear 2 things. No one likes to hear, oh, they were going to give me $6,000 for my 1,000 names. They could kiss my ass. And then also, a lot of the guys don't want to really, unless there's going to be a real transaction, they don't want to tell you what they're really willing to pay. They don't want to hurt your feelings. And plus, they don't want to go out there and say, it's not really as much hurt your feelings as let people know when you're trying to liquidate, that's how low it is. And they're in the same boat too, but they have more premium stuff. So I guess the point is I like the idea of saying, buy my portfolio. What would you buy these names for? And I love the honesty of the guys. They've done it to me before. Hey, I'm not interested in all these things that you got. I'm interested in only a very few of them. And at those very few, I would give you a wholesale, low wholesale. Basically, I've done it, and I did it. And then finally, Ryan at Digital Junkyard, that's his company now, he outbid, well, there's 4 guys, really 3, that I was trying to sell portfolio 4-letter for, and he paid a little bit more and of one of them. And then once I did business with certain guys, then I didn't have to go back to the others knowing, hey, you already did me a favor. I'm not going to let these other guys pick off now the good ones. I'm going to do you a solid and let you now take the ones with the premium letters at a good price if you're willing to work with me on that. But I love the idea of Josh. I agree with you. It's like you contact. A lot of us can contact those same guys, and they're just going to be real frank and say a lot of the stuff is crap. I will buy your whole portfolio. I only want these four, but no one likes to hear that. I don't know.
And I think it's a weakness in the industry where it's like, everyone, if anyone wants to exit, you kind of like have to, you know, liquidate at a very low rate, and you have to be connected to a handful of other domainers that might buy your domain. And like you said, they're going to handpick the ones that they want. I think, like I said earlier, there's an opportunity to evolve that, to innovate around that. I mean, the story of domains is very appealing to people outside of domains if it's properly will be exciting to other people if it's properly told. When people hear about Adam selling mind mesh for 150 and buying it for 10 grand, people want to participate in that in some capacity, but they don't want to take that risk of, oh, I'm paying the 10 grand. So I think over time, that would be one of those things that somebody will figure out like, okay, this is an entity that exists to buy domains, including portfolios, and it'll be at close to fair market value as possible. Because right now, it simply doesn't exist. If it's just a homeboy thing, well, let me call my
But
friends.
fair market value, you keep saying that. Fair market value to me, it's
It's
not. It's what I
subjective, of
say it
course.
is. If you
Yeah,
It's
it's
not.
if they
subjective.
bring it to this,
It's not subjective for portfolios, man. It's really not. But it's just that nobody can provide the data and the stats that you would need in order to sell or buy a portfolio, because most people haven't been either doing it long enough or are not having success. At the end of the day, it's just like any other portfolio. You look at the sales, right? And then you times the sales by whatever multiple you agree on. If I paid 500K for this portfolio, and it's doing, let's say it's doing 500K a year in sales fairly consistently for the last 2 or 3 years, then the only question then is, what multiple are you guys gonna pay for my portfolio? Are you gonna pay me a 3x multiple? Will you pay me 1.5 million? Maybe not. Maybe you'll only pay a 2x. Maybe you'll only pay me 1 million for
but
that
Josh,
portfolio.
it's like
I mean, there,
cars.
there are
This guy's never
historical
say somebody's
references,
never
right?
sold. They have a portfolio of 500 names. They've never offered them for sale. They have a portfolio of 500
Then
baseball cards. They've never
yeah, but
sold
then
any. So
so
they,
then
but
so then at that point, if they've never offered them for sale, they have no. You're valuing the names on an individual basis, and you're not gonna be able to demonstrate what the max value is of those names. You're gonna hope and pray that someone sees value in individual names, and that's as simple as that. But if you truly want to build a business and a liquid portfolio that you can sell, you need to demonstrate the revenue. And if you can't demonstrate the revenue, you don't have anything.
okay, and
So I,
good.
I think there are historical references for this, right? GoDaddy purchased Frank Sheeran's portfolio, Mike Mansoda's portfolio. How were those transactions evaluated? How did they come up with those numbers?
I mean, a lot of it depends on the quality of the names and the sales, but it's not one data point. It's
Mhm.
multiple data points. So like those portfolios, Mike Birkin's portfolio, same thing. It's like they contain some very, very premium names that had established liquid prices, one word.coms, three-letter.coms, where you could value it, within a pretty close frame of reference. You knew that, this three-letter.com had a very liquid value of, let's say, 50K, and he had, I don't know, 80 of them or whatever. So like there was some like baseline values, but they're absolutely looking at what the portfolio produces, what similar names produced what over a given period of time. Like, if you build a portfolio in 1 year or 2 years and you don't have historical sales data, you don't have a strong case for going and selling your portfolio.
Yeah, but let me push back on that. Weren't those portfolios generating parking revenue back then? Isn't that wasn't that part of that assessment? Does that mean that the value has declined? because now there's no more parking revenue.
For sure, for sure,
Wow.
And it was a
for sure.
combination that when they bought Birkin's portfolio, it's a combination of the data, and the data can only help you as the seller. You're hoping it only helps you. You don't want to present it if it's not going to help you as a seller. But if the data is not there, that's why I say these buyers and the ones that we mentioned, they are buyers with money that know the domain business. So it's just like the guys that bid on those storage units. There's certain guys, that's what they do. They bid on storage units, they got the money. So you can come in and go, that one's worth 12,000. They're like, well, all of us are the pros here, and we were only willing to bid up to 1,500 or 2,000 by viewing it. And this is what we do every day. So if you want to come in and start saying these are worth a lot more than they are, go ahead. The pros, and we're talking, he just mentioned a few names, and I'm including Josh here too. If you show him a portfolio, and if I show Braden a portfolio, and I did, here's 1,000 four-letter names, here's the revenue for the last 5 years from a portfolio like this, and if I would have, and I use that revenue, those sales data to try to make him believe that, get a better offer from him. If I didn't have any of that and said, listen, I've had these names, I've never offered them for sale, he would probably think, okay, still interested in it, but I wanted that data. One, I was hoping you would surprise me and say, hey, there's more sales coming out of this than even a professional thought, because they're always willing to learn in new sectors of the markets too. But the point is, I believe, these buyers, there's certain guys that buy domain names in the space, and the big companies, GoDaddy is interested in your portfolio too. If you have over 10,000 names and there's something there, and if you really can
Yeah,
show,
but
go ahead.
they want to see they want to see historical sales data as well, or they want to like so at the end of the day, if I'm selling my portfolio, I'm 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 not selling it as a winner. In I know historically we've looked at some of the portfolio sales and like people have seemed to have done quite well, but the industry has evolved, and if I wanted to get rid of my domains tomorrow, it wouldn't be a success story. It would be most likely the fact that someone
It's
like
more like
Braden,
tapping out. Yeah.
yeah, more someone like Braden is probably going to get their money back on my purchase within, let's say, a year and a half to 2 years, and then from there on they're 100% in the gravy, just making money that I should have been making. So like, let's say that my portfolio, the 12,500 names in my portfolio, let's say they doing easy like 600K a year. Maybe Braden would give me 1.2 mil, 1.5 mil, something like that for the portfolio. And within, before 2 years, he would have got all the money back, still have, 12,300 names from the portfolio, and he's going to be literally in the gravy. And like, there's probably a better case scenario where, depending on who's buying, who's selling the portfolio, that it outperforms what it's, if it's on an upward trajectory, it might outperform. But I can tell you what's not going to happen is that they're not going to buy a portfolio that they're not breaking even on for 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. They're going to want to break even on that portfolio within 2 years, sometimes 1 year, if they're not even that motivated. So when I say, portfolio is worth X, I'm talking about like, I'm getting out, I'm tapping out, and I'm losing value in the long run, almost for sure.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. We're going to do that. Buy a portfolio. No one likes to really hear what someone else would offer, especially when it's somebody like, hey, I'm out there buying names and I have the money. I'll give you 20,000 for, and someone's like, they just can't believe that that's the only thing that they would, get for their name. I mean, I love, just the reality of how it hits people. I wanted to say a couple things. One, Shane wanted to wish everybody a great rest of your day, successful day. He was going to do some work. So I think it'd be nice too, if you have some names and you want to work with a broker. I'm going to talk about DNX and about Brook because it's my number one option. But still, Shane was here. Contact Winterline, contact Shane, send him a list of your names and say, hey, any of these you want to work on, I think he's in a great spot. It's like he's it's like a smart new lawyer. I won't say young because he's not young. So he's already said, they got less inventory, less clients they're working with. Perfect time for a broker that's motivated. So reach out to Shane at Winterline, and if you have some names, have him just say, hey, any of these interest you? Maybe repping me on these, and then of course contact DNX. Like I said, Brooke it does it through DNX. You can contact her, through DNX. Just go to dnx.com, and that way you can have the whole package, the lander, and you can act like you're working with Josh. Just don't use his name in public. And then her handle here on X is at Broker Brooke, BROKER, BROOKE. But no, I was gonna say we got names, and sometimes you haven't done it in a while. Send a list. You can. It's easy to go to dnx.com and then just in your account um, submit some names for brokerage and see what they have to say. But I think it's always good. You never know. Sometimes they're knowing things behind the scenes of people that are interested in certain types of names, and you thought, geez, that was I didn't realize they wanted that twoword.com of mine. But anyway, so thanks, Shane, for being here. I know he's probably not listening now. Maybe he'll do on the replay, but he wished everybody a successful day. All right. And yeah, Brooke was here. I saw Brooke in the crowd. Yeah, there she is. Yeah. So, at Broker Brooke, reach out to her, but you can do that through DNX too. Samit, what do you like about that lander? I know it caught your eye. I thought it looked pretty good too, but what do you think about
Yeah,
that?
it's neat. It provides you double branding, DNX and the brokerage, Pro Broker, I think it is. Brooks Brokerage. And looks neat. They have other landers, but they're not pixel perfect. Dan got one thing right, was the landers were designed beautifully. I've just been trying out DNX, get a lot of crap offers. But I've only put my .im names there because GoDaddy doesn't support .im through distribution. So I thought maybe we'll deal directly with the offers, but the offers are sporadic. And I think it's partially because the lander is not very conducive. Again, I might just be saying that because the names aren't getting very many offers, but there were a lot more offers on afternoon. As far as portfolio sales go, this is not stock market or some commodity that you're dealing with. How can you value a portfolio on the basis of names you've sold? They no longer exist in the portfolio. And that could be, a problem because you have something called like the law of diminishing returns. You've sold the top 10% of the names from the portfolio. Now you're left with 90% of the names which nobody wants. And you're going to value the whole portfolio based on the sales you've already had. Doesn't make sense. You can't really compare Mike Perkins or Frank Schilling and all that. I agree with Josh that, like in Mike's case, I think he sold the portfolio for 32 million. But 10 million, even at that time, was right there in terms of two-letter, three-letter .coms, three-letter .orgs. I think there were like 500 three-letter .coms in that portfolio. And what we worked out back then was 10 million was, you could encash it wholesale at 10 million of those top names. And the balance names were 22 million. And I think there were 55,000 names, which worked out to about 660 per name. But remember, this was also like 10, 15 years back, I think. It wasn't recent. So the prices now in auction are kind of crazy. I look at replacement value. If I was to get each name in my portfolio at any wholesale venue, whether it's Atom Wholesale or even the spaceship clearances or afternoon clearances, we see a lot of people selling domains for $100. Or Name Pros. Of course, Name Pros is kind of dead right now in terms of sales. The only thing that sells on Name Pros is what's selling on WhatsApp or through X or Direct or whatever, which is wholeheader.coms and, made up brands which are obvious. A lot of people trying to sell made up. You're Todd, you're in Dennis's WhatsApp group, aren't you?
Nope.
You see the names being offered out there, $20, $30. So I choose not. I've done that. I did that from 2007 to 2010 or so. I sold about 3,000 names. Marginal markups, buy for 20, sell for 30, buy for 20, sell for 50. Of course, sometimes you got lucky, you bought for 50 and you sold for 200, 300, stuff like that. But that was rare. And a lot of bulk sales for other people. Like I bought 299 names from somebody and sold them the next day to buy domains for literally $8 more per name. But that $8 more per name worked out to 2.5 grand of extra money in my pocket. And that was good. Now that person could have sold directly to buy domains, yes. But the process would have been longer. I already had the relationship. I'm sure a lot of the smaller domainers and all do this. You flip to the larger domainers who then try and sell to end users and stuff like that. In fact, the Booth brothers started like that. They were selling domains at 5, 10%, even lower sometimes, to Braden and Drew Rosner, and it's a feeding the pipeline. I think Josh is very familiar with what I'm talking about. And the minute Drew started buying, all the deals started going to Braden. And Braden made out like a bandit because he had liquidity. He bought a lot of top tier names at this thing. But it's a whole different game. At the lower end of the market where we are playing, where I'm playing specifically, where I'm looking at 3,000, 4,000 average for a name retail, my wholesale is never going to be more than $200, $250. And honestly, if I'm getting a bulk deal, I'm willing to discount that further. Now the question is, does someone who's entering the market have the balls to put up like 200 grand, pick up say 500 names? It's not going to be cheap, or maybe whatever, 110, 150 grand, whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out there. It's not really relevant because they don't have the expertise. And if you had the liquidity, as in if your names were selling in retail for the kind of prices that you're talking about, you wouldn't have to sell it in a portfolio, right? You would take 2 years or 3 years and you would get your money out. I have names in my portfolio which like I price at about 7, 8,000, but Atom prices them at 40,000. Can I even get 4 grand out of that? Not really. It's not in wholesale. Retail maybe, I don't know. Again, it's not that easy. It's selling, but the basic idea of selling portfolios is you have to have the person buying see the opportunity of turning that into many multiples of cash. That is the only trick to selling portfolios, in my opinion. You did it with your 4Ls. You saw what happened.
I think you said so many wise things today. That's why I was like, is that Samit talking? Yeah, Samit, you always say some smart things, but today, very wise, and especially about the past data. Okay, so I sold all the good shit. That's why I know what I've sold. I know what inquiries I have on this remaining portfolio. You want to look at that data, go ahead, and I've given it, and if it benefits me. But you were spot on that, yeah, usually the good shit is picked off, but they want, if somebody wants the data, fine. But also the reason why some of us consider selling a portfolio, even though, geez, why don't I just hold it for that 18 months or 2 years and then I'll get that money? Because it's not guaranteed and it's not consistent. And I don't know if that's going to happen or if the world's going to end. So no, I want my money now. I just want what I've invested. I just want that back. So if I've invested, say if I have in all the bullshit that I have now, I have 250,000 or 300,000. Most of it I've hand registered, or yeah, I mean, let's face the music. So I mean, if I have 250,000, somebody said we'll give you 250,000 for your portfolio. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd take that. Maybe I'd have to look through my crap and think, you know what? I probably would. There's so much crap here. There's a few good things, and and a buyer would think exactly that. I think I can make my money back in 18 months, and plus they think, well, yeah, Todd has the stuff priced way too high. No wonder he's not selling this name. You should be selling it for 6,000, not 56,000. No wonder he doesn't have sales. So there's a lot of data about portfolios that are helpful to know, and some of it is should be, discounted. Like Samit said, past sales, you probably sold all the good shit. About what those acquisitions in the past, yeah. When you're say messing with Drew and he's interested in NFT domains, he's paying a lot more for them. Now it slows up. Way back in the day, he was interested in weed names. Now he's like, no, I sold all that shit off. He couldn't wait to get away from that. So when GoDaddy was interested in buying names, it was a different world than it was over 15 years ago, probably about 17, 18, when they bought Birkin's portfolio. And they're at a different stage. So if you got a bunch of stuff and there's buyers, that's fucking great. I was going to say too about, we're going on 5 more minutes today. That's it. But yeah, a lot of us, we're just, about the same. If it was me looking at your portfolio or Drew looking at your portfolio, he's probably going to offer you more. I don't want this stuff. He might see more value in it, but I'd say, hey, I'll give you for those 20 names, $2,000. He probably says, I'll give you 4,000, or maybe it's 200 names. But the point is, these, like I said, these other guys are experienced. They understand the domain business. They have the capital to buy names. They're actually out there buying names. So it's not like there's some guys that you could go to and they're like, dude, I haven't bought anything for a couple of years. Why would I be interested in your portfolio? But there's some guys who are always buying, looking to really actually, open to consider buying portfolios. Oh, because they understand when I do take on these names, I'm going to have a lot of renewals more than, immediately, especially for names that I may. So I just think, that there is a fair market value is what, if somebody, put up their portfolio. I think I'm going to do something next week where here's this portfolio. What would but no one really wants to say what they'd buy it for if there's really not going to be a transaction. But I will. So if anybody, next week, bring your portfolio. You can share it. I'll tell you exactly what I would buy, what I would, part with money. I got, tiny bit. If you got some good stuff, and I'd say exactly how people tell me, 8 of these 10 names I don't even want. They suck, so that's 0. These 2 are, you think they're worth 50,000 retail. I'll give you 400 for this one. I'll give you 600 for this one. So I'm going to give you $1,000 for these 10 names. And 2 of them would have to be really good probably. But the point is, anybody's like, well, then F you, then go on to the next guy. And then we'll have Josh say, Josh, if you, today you were going to give him something. It's like, if you got something that's really worthwhile, someone's going to go, I'll give you the 400. I'll give you the 600. And Samit, I'll just finish by saying what you said exactly about my portfolio falls right in line with that. Wholesale, a lot of the stuff is worth 200 to 300 bucks. And then if you're willing to buy 50 of them, 200 of them, a lot of them, I'll even go a little bit lower than that because that's what makes it attractive to the portfolio buyer. But you're just not, I think, people don't like to liquidate, but that really is when the rubber meets the road. That's really when you run right into fair market value. And people just don't like to know that, there's that big discrepancy in what you can really sell a name for immediately as opposed to sitting and waiting. And when you do that with your portfolio, you sit and wait. You wait with 1,000 names 2 years to sell 4 of them. So it's not like you wait 2 years and you sold all 1,000. It's just, I don't know. I love domain investing, but this isn't for the faint of heart. Is that how you say it? Josh, any...
You can reduce your prices at marketplaces and increase STR. But are you going to be able to replace that name for that? Suppose you sell a name for 4 grand, okay, which otherwise you would price at maybe say 20 grand, and you sold it for 4 grand. Now you see names like that going on bloody expired auctions for the same price, which means you're selling retail what other people are buying wholesale. There's a fundamental disconnect there. I don't have a solution. I'm just making an observation.
What a fun conversation. Josh, any closing words?
No.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. All right, everybody. Listen, next week We're going to talk about domain name investing. All right. But, Ish is going to talk about it too Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific. Sometimes he starts at crazier times, but you're going to be there this Saturday, Ish? Okay. 100. Yeah. He's watching the games. And I was wrong too about San Antonio, the first game. I didn't bet on it, Ish. I just didn't feel great, but I like San Antonio better than New York. And boy, I'll tell you, didn't work out for the Spurs yesterday. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Listen, everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to the replay. If you're listening on replay, like I said, we'll be here next Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for the DNX show. Some of our colleagues, like I said, Ish has a show on Saturday about domain investing. We do the same thing, and I love it there because I don't have to worry about topics, and I can just chime in, and he can tell me to shut the F up. Okay, and then next Tuesday, I'm still doing this domain name law show. We do talk about the legal issues, domain names, and some interesting stuff we're going to talk about Tuesday. So that's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Till I talk to you next time, take care of yourself. Thanks for being here. Bye.